Hey, everybody, and welcome to another night of Women's World of Fishing Monday Night Takeover. Thank you so much for spending probably your last day of work off with us on Monday night. Um, Angie and I, when we scheduled for tonight, didn't realize that most people were off, probably coming back from vacation. We were not on vacation,
No.
um, so we just kept it scheduled for tonight. So thank you for those of you that are going to tune in. Others can watch the replay because we have a lot to cover tonight. We're going to cut down, and we've had some feedback, and we're going to try and cram some information into 30 minutes and get this booming out. And we're going to probably save the longer shows for when we have some interviews and other stuff going on. So um, I think we've got our feeds out. It looks like, yep, because I'm live on Facebook. Do you see? Look, does it look like we're out
I
on your
think
end,
so. Let
Angie?
me just double check here. Every time I click on something, it starts playing it in the background. My, yep, we're good. Looks like
Okay,
so.
good deal. Well, again, thank you everybody for coming. And you've probably seen the thumbnail for tonight, and we talked about it at the last show. That we were taking it back to the beginning, starting from scratch. So if you did miss the last show, just a real quick going over. I kept the descriptions up, so if you missed it, these were the questions that we went really in depth about. So you might want to go back and check that out um, at the end of this show, because this will still be beneficial. But these questions are hugely important when you start making decisions. So just about, who are you going to be fishing with? Because that'll make some decisions that'll be different for everybody. Um, and what are your options of places to fish? That's going to be different for everybody, and how you're going to fish. um and then what are the species that are available, for you to fish for? um and what would you like to start fishing for based on the places and based on the species available? And then kind of at the end of the show, it was okay, now you need fishing gear. Just take my money, because that's kind of how we feel when we start getting really excited. We don't want you to do that. Learn from our mistakes. So now, wrapping up from that, um, it probably feels pretty overwhelming. I have a whole bunch of gear and I feel overwhelmed right now. I mean,
Oh, for sure.
Angie,
Yeah.
I mean, don't you kind of like,
It seems
because I,
like you think you got everything you need, and then the next thing you know, you talk to somebody new, and they're like, "Oh, this is the best technique to use," and then it's like, well, I don't have that. And then you're adding more, and sometimes you actually use it, sometimes you don't, and it's just you end up with just a overwhelming barrage of gear and tackle and techniques. And you know, we all have our favorites that we use that we're confident with. We talk about that a lot, like your confidence
Mhm.
baits or techniques. And but it's hard not to fall into that when somebody's saying, "Hey, this is the thing that works the best for me," and then you're like, "Ooh, I need to do that."
Right.
So you do end
It,
up with a lot of stuff that you may or may not even use.
yeah. I mean, I literally, because I started fishing some during the week at ponds, for a lot of different reasons. But I'm glad I have, because I think it's really going to help me with this, with this, channel. Um, but I started out with just a little stuff, and then a little more stuff, and then a little more, and now I'm just like, seriously, this is my boat on land. I got stuff everywhere. Um, and it does help to kind of narrow things down, and that's what we're gonna try and do. um, so from the thumbnail, um, the first thing we really want to focus on is, especially if you're fishing with kids, if they're not catching fish pretty quick, they're chasing butterflies, they're playing in the dirt, they need to catch stuff pretty quickly.
Which there's
um
nothing wrong with that other stuff too. I mean, when you're a kid, that's part of the whole experience,
mhm,
playing with bait or, whatever. It's just getting your hands dirty and exploring all those different things.
right, and even when they start seeing stuff, you know, um, other people catch stuff, it it gets them excited.
Yeah,
I caught a really nice fish today out of a pond, and the people next to me that were bluegill fishing, they were so excited. And I talked to one of the girls, and I hope that that hooked her for life. You never know. She
you
was
never know.
excited.
Yeah, I ran over to the marina just this evening. I had to do a tour for Freedom Boat Club, but as I was walking by, a dad caught a really nice crappie right off the dock, and the little boy was so excited. He's like, "Oh, you got a crappie!"
Yeah.
So it's those moments that maybe seem small to us, but can really shape a kid's
Hmm.
desires for wanting to pursue the sport. So
Right. Absolutely. And that's kind of where we're going to start, is to get you just catching something fairly quick. So when it comes to rods and reels, um, you know, eh, rod and reel versus a combo, like I don't I don't have anything that I could use to go out and actually target panfish, sunfish, so we're talking like bluegill. That's really all I mean, I don't know what else to call them. Like, we call every sunfish bluegill. I mean, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, so I mean, you're talking about the the fish that swim the bank that you usually see pretty frequently, no matter what body of water that you're on. But I don't have a specific setup that I can say this is specifically for that. So I did a lot of looking on YouTube for recommendations for this, and I found a video that was the Zebco Dock Demon versus the Zebco Slingshot. And have you seen that,
I
Angie?
haven't.
I think it was done by one of the Guggen guys. And these are two combos, which means you get the pole and you get the reel together, and it's under $10,
Mm,
and it comes with pre-lined. So
mhm.
it's 10-pound mono that's on that, which the good thing about that is that it's going to be um, you'll be able to handle a nice size bass with that, because the dock demon was stated to be, I think it was that one. Yeah, the virtually unbreakable pole, and they
Mm.
had people just like, you know, and with 10-pound mono, I mean, you really could catch a really nice bass on that.
Now, how long is that rod? Just out of
It's
curiosity, being called the Dock Demon, because
it's
I'm
like 6'2", I think
nice.
is the longest. I mean, it's not really long at all.
Right. Well,
Uh,
because being with that name, Dock Demon, I've seen a lot of people out here fishing the docks, off the docks with almost like ice fishing type length poles,
yeah, it
so
is.
you have that access
Mhm.
to be able to make those shorter casts and in the slips and things like that. So
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I've
curious.
even talked about getting a pole similar to that for when you get your boat like areas, and because I've almost broken poles setting the hook, back and hitting trees and stuff like that. So, but the good thing about this is, I mean, it's under $10. It comes with line. They were catching, 3 to 4 pound bass on this. And, so you can't really beat that.
Well,
But,
and I will say some of my best catches off the dock here have been off a Barbie pole. So that's something about a Barbie pole. I think it's just good luck.
I wish my uncle was watching this, because at Lake Cumberland, he actually caught, he said it was over 6, so I'll say over 4, but on a Barbie pole on a cricket.
There you go.
So you just never know. But it was the same price on Walmart.com, as well as in store, and it was the same price on Amazon. So it didn't seem like there was a price difference. So if you're somebody that's going to go after the panfish, or something like that, I would recommend that. Unfortunately, I can't, like, recommend a whole bunch of different ones, just because I don't really know. Um, but
When we
those
do
had to be
our when
used.
we do our kids fishing days with the local bass club here and the boys and girls club, we've used Lose. They make a good spinning rod reel combo that's
Okay.
pretty affordable beginner setup, but it's also it's good quality stuff. I'm not knocking the one you were talking about. We also had some donated to us from the Future Anglers Foundation that are
Okay.
the closed rod reel combos that we've used. Those work really well. So there's a lot of options out there.
Mhm.
Just get something simple. And if you got really little kids, I do highly recommend getting those shorter rods and reels. It's just easier for them to be able to work those, not being as tall yet, you know.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. In Six Gill, they make an ice fishing pole
hmm
that kids have used for ice, or used for panfish.
hmm
So I've heard of people doing that as well.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. And I've seen a lot of really monster fish caught on ice fishing rods because, you've probably seen, Barbara, people ice fishing oftentimes catch these trophy fish, but it's on these little bitty rods and reels. And so that's an excellent option for little kids because it's just so much easier for them. It's just a lot less to get,
Right.
you know, messed up and whatnot. So.
Yeah, the ice fishing thing. I mean, I love watching the ice fishing stuff, but I was rolling your eyes when you said it, because I'm just thinking, when the big largemouth come out from that ice hole, it just makes me just put my head down, because I'm like, really? They can barely swim and you're catching them.
I know I'm always surprised when somebody catches a big bass ice fishing, but
I guess they
typically,
got to eat at some
yeah,
point.
that's true. But yeah, typically, I don't know that I've ever caught a bass ice fishing. It's been crappie, walleye. I'm always, obviously it's those northern species, so you've got pike, that type of fish. But
I've never caught one ice fishing.
mm,
One day
wonder
I
why.
will. Right, one day I will, when I go. Um, so again, lots of options for rods and reels. If you want to, um, start bigger, like Angie was saying, you can always go with a spin cast. You can use bigger line on it. Um, as long as it's lined correctly, it's you shouldn't have a lot of issues with the line, like some people have with a bait caster. And with a spinning rod, I think it opens you up to trying to go for a lot of different species and changing it up some. So you could, kind of maybe start with the Zebco, go, or the lose, or whatever it is, and then try a spin cast. I mean, it's going to depend on what it is exactly that you want to do.
And
Um,
Mike Iconelli has a lot of great beginner setups through Abu Garcia. So
oh,
that's
okay.
a good one to check out too. I've got one of those just for fun, just for some, the panfish,
Nice.
lighter style fishing. But um and it talk about a little bit, so for people that don't know, I mean, when you buy these, typically these combos already have the line on them. Um a lot of the tackle shops, if you're buying one that doesn't already have line on it, they can spool it for you right there at the store when you're buying it, so you don't have to worry about that. But inevitably at some point you're going to have to put new line on. So talk a little bit about what you're talking about putting it on correctly.
Well, there is a there's a specific way that you have to line um a spinning reel. Like it has to go um opposite ways. Like there's a specific knot that has to go on the spool, and honestly, like I recommend the first, honestly, 10 times probably that you do it on a spinning rod. I recommend watching a YouTube video as you do it, because sometimes even now, like I'll get turned around because I don't like spool my spinning rod all that much because I don't use it very much, but so like it's an overhand knot, and then you wrap it again, which it's hard to I don't have
Explain
anything I
without
can
being
use.
able to show.
Yeah, but it's whenever you are reeling it on, it's got to come off the spool the opposite way that it's reeling, if that makes sense. Do you know a better way to explain that?
I would recommend, why don't we do this? Why don't you find a good video that demonstrates how to do it on YouTube and share it in the notes for this
That's
episode?
Yeah, I will do that because it it makes a huge difference. And one of the things is, and it doesn't matter if it's a bait caster, if it's a spinning rod, the worst thing you can do is to over spool it. If you over spool it, you are going to have major issues until it's down to a um, healthy level. You
Or on
know,
the flip side of that, underspooling it, because you can quickly get into a situation with a big fish where you run out of line, and that's not a good position to be in either. So
right.
you gotta put the right amount on there, and make sure as you're using it and retying and cutting and whatnot that you're monitoring that level to where you might have to add more new line, on that reel at some point. How often do you put new line on your reels? Do you do it often throughout the season, or just once a year pretty much, or what do
No,
you
I
do?
do it multiple times throughout the season.
Mhm.
A lot of people don't do like full fluorocarbon on their bait casters. They'll do like the monofilament and then finish it off with the fluorocarbon because fluorocarbon is more
Cheaper?
expensive.
Or yeah, I mean, more expensive, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't do that. I do straight fluorocarbon on those bait casters. Um, and the reason that I do um, is it's just one thing less for me to worry about, like waiting for, okay, where am I in that, looking for that. And as far as the knot, that's like a double blood knot or something for that. I'm not confident in my ability to do that knot. And I'm not afraid to admit that. Like, my knot tying skills are basic.
Me too.
Polymer
I
knot.
I'm a yeah, that's me, and then, it's important we talk about knots too, because that's another big part of fishing. But I started off with the modified clinch knot, I guess it's called. That's what my dad taught me.
Hmm.
Um, I messed that knot up a lot more than I'd like to admit, and so I've kind of adopted the polymer knot over the years, and that's what I use as my go-to knot for most all situations where I can use it. If I'm doing leader, I learned from the Salt Strong guys, the FG knot. Took me a second to remember what it was called. I'm like you in that where I'm not confident in my FG knot skills, so it takes me probably every time I do it, which isn't very often, I have to watch their video again and
Right.
then kind of do it along with them as they're doing the video. But it will probably take me 4 or 5 times before I actually get it right. And
Right.
it's so funny because he talks about in the video, he's like, "This is so simple. I don't know why people have so much trouble with this." And every time, and I agree with him, it looks totally simple, but I still mess it up somehow 4 or 5
Well,
times before I get it right.
when people are doing the videos though, and they're using like the big hook and the rope that's red and they're doing it, and they're like, oh, you do this and you wrap it around and then you go in here, it's like, oh, that's simple.
And you take the rabbit through the hole, and then you
Yeah.
go around the tree and
Yeah. And then when you have your little teeny tiny hook and then this like see through line, it's like, wait a minute, where's my rope?
which
It's
I'll
oh,
give it to the Salt Strong guys. I mean, they do it with real line and, so they're giving you an accurate picture, but he does it all probably every day, whereas
right.
I do it a few times a year and my brain just doesn't work well with I don't know what it is. I'm a captain. I have to know how to do certain knots,
Right.
but it's just my downfall, I guess, if I could
Well,
say, but
I mean, I know that, certain knots are better for certain situations and, and stuff like that. And I'm sure that, you know, uh, I can say this, I never get broken off at the knot, you know.
I wish I did sometimes when I'm out there and like, we've had these situations. We talked about this because I use the Runkle line as well. I don't understand why I cannot break their line when I need
I do.
to because I, you cast up in a tree and you're in a tournament situation and maybe you don't have time or you can't get the boat to where you need to go to try to retrieve that bait and sometimes you get in those situations where you have to cut the line my knot, my line will not break no matter what I do.
Don't
It's
complain about that.
I
If
know.
if you complain about that, the next time you've hooked a big one,
Yeah,
it's going to
it's
break and
gonna
you're going to be
break,
like,
yeah.
"Oh."
So the one thing I do know is I do have my polymer knot down pat.
Mhm. Right. Great, and, the Runkle line is great, and if you have good line, one of the things I recommend is not to, like, pull and stretch and stuff like that. Because my dad uses, P-line mono, and, there are some times where I'm just like, "You're gonna tip the boat over," you know, and I tell him, "You need to cut it because it's going through, like, half of your spool." And it does weaken the line. And so that can be a huge factor. But the polymer knot for me just works.
Mhm.
Do I lose fish because of it? I'm sure that I do, because depending on how they put the bait in their mouth and I set the hook. I mean, the hook's got to penetrate them a certain way, and certain hooks are supposed to, like jerk up or do something. And you know, we can only control what we can control.
Yeah, that's right.
If he
We're
wants to, if he wants to
probably
come at it from the side,
we're probably getting a little more advanced than, kind of the beginner stuff, but I would recommend to learn the polymer knot at the beginning because that is a good solid knot. It's really easy once you get it down to tie fairly quickly, and also I don't think you can really beat the three knots that I would recommend learning in the beginning would be the polymer knot, that modified clinch knot that I learned when I started out, but never I had issues with that knot, so I'm more confident, like I said, with polymer knot. But then also the Snell knot. That's another highly recommended knot for beginners. It's fairly easy to tie. And that's good for some situations like you're talking about where you want to set the hook a certain way. If you're somewhere where there's a lot of vegetation that you're fishing in, the snell knot is decent to learn how to use. So those are just some recommendations that I have.
Okay. And I use the cinch knot like for when I'm spooling a bait caster, but we'll cover that down the road.
Right.
Um, okay, so now you have some ideas of different rod reels, combos, and stuff that you can at least go look at. If if you're in the store, you can feel them out, see if they're comfortable. Um, and if it's not panfish that you want to go after, you know if you want to get into carp or catfish, you know don't listen to us on that. You don't want to go get one of these like you know uh, demons and or anything like that. You're looking at totally different gear for that. um
I had a catfish about snap my Barbie pole in half, so that was fun.
oh, I bet. But I'll tell you, we're gonna have to cover. We were kind of joking about carp fishing last week. Um, I'm dabbling in TikTok. Um, Totally different world, by the way. And I had no idea how many people carp fish,
Mm,
and I'm
well,
talking a lot of people. Um, I I really didn't know. There's a lot of people um on TikTok that's what they're actually after. And a lot of people into the catfishing. So I can't, people might start there. And if you do, um, I would I would go look at the gear. That might be something that we should, look into because I'm not 100% sure. I know that Six Skill, they actually have some like bigger game reels and rod combinations that they recommend for stuff like that. And they have species. Oh, we just lost Angie. um, but they have recommendations on rods and reels for specific species. So you completely could, um, check them out and see what recommendations they make specifically for catfish, carp, or bigger fish like that. Oh, there she is. Welcome back.
I guess our internet just stopped working. It's been pretty good, but today has been a little spotty for some reason. So I got on a different connection, see if that's any better.
Oh, yeah, you just like you weren't even like, you know, like fuzzy or anything. You were just gone.
Yeah, I know. It just stopped working just like that.
So, so after that, Angie had brought up last week about the take me fishing .org, which I was able to look at for Kentucky, and I did put the website in the description for last week's episode. And it's just an excellent resource um, for everything fishing, basically. And it's great that they, give everything for each individual state. So,
Hmm.
highly recommend that because the other thing I was going to talk about again was the places to fish with no boat. A lot of beginners, most beginners do not have a boat. And obviously I wouldn't say, "Oh, you're starting fishing, go out and get a boat. Go out and get a big expensive kayak." You know, that's usually not something that anybody would recommend. But you can have a blast at local ponds. Um, like Angie was talking about, bringing up on Google Earth, and it shows, different waterways and stuff that are around you that you may have not even known was there. Make sure that you're not breaking any laws to get in. And like I always say, like for the golf courses, um, even cemeteries, stuff like that, call and ask, that's what I would recommend because those can be great places to go. Um, Kentucky has what's called a FINS program, which I don't know if any other states have that, but it's to help bring good fishing into neighborhoods so that they actually like help stock different lakes. Well, basically ponds, but with bass, catfish, trout, which it's way too hot here for our ponds to maintain trout. So it's basically for people to catch really quick or for the bass to eat really quick. Um, but check out and see you know, what it is that your state offers. They might have something like that, but make sure that you know the rules in your state, whether you're keeping fish or not. Um, because I always say the fish in game don't play. Um, like in in my state, you're probably better off robbing a bank than poaching a deer. Like you you just want to make sure that you're following all applicable rules, and that really goes with this was the next thing I was going to talk about with live bait. I know we won't get into live bait and artificial bait tonight because we're getting ready to cut off for the night. But if you use live bait, because people use it for crappie,
Hmm.
panfish, um, cut bait for catfish, and I mean minnows for bass. I mean, literally, there's hardly any species that's not going to eat live bait.
And that's all I
And
used when I was a kid. I remember I didn't catch my first fish off of artificial bait till I was in high school. So, you know, I was like, this stuff doesn't work. It's not real, because that's how I just grew up fishing minnows, night crawlers, leeches up north.
red worms
That's what
and
we used. Yeah. I
yeah.
just recently started using crickets, which I hadn't used when I was taking kids out fishing last year because those work really well with the panfish, like the bluegill and stuff. So, um, but yeah, continue on. There's some good stuff to know if you're going to be fishing with live bait.
Is cicadas. I actually ran into I actually ran into a guy at a pond last week. So Steven, if you are watching this, I'm thinking about you, buddy, because he has a freezer full of cicadas. And what he said makes total sense that come August, and even probably late July, because we had them bad. And, our waterways, the fish are going to be like, where'd all them really good things go? And so he's going to have a whole bunch of them that he's going to be able to use for bait because they're gone. Nothing can compete with it. And oh, they're so nasty. But anyway, insects is one of the main live baits that that is used. And I did not read anywhere where insects was you could break any rules for that. Like I
Mm,
didn't find anything for that. But where you really have to pay attention is with minnows, um, bluegill, because there are some places where it's illegal to use bluegill as bait,
mhm,
because it's considered a game fish. And there's a lot of people that will catch a little bluegill and use it as cut bait.
mhm.
So they have like invasive species where it's illegal to bring in, outside species that isn't native to your state. Um, like my my friend with liquid willow cat, Eric, he actually has live willow cats. He makes an artificial um type, but he has live ones, and he can sell them in Wisconsin because they're native there, but he cannot sell them, or send them to anybody out of state because they're not native. So
And I
it's just a
believe
little.
the willow cats are like they're like little tiny catfish. And you gotta be careful handling those things because they have the stingers on them just like catfish do, and the sting on those things is probably maybe even worse than a catfish. So I fish
Really?
with them. Yeah, I fished with them in La Crosse, Wisconsin on the Mississippi River when I was up there a couple of years ago, I guess it was. And so they're like minnows. I mean, they're about the size of a minnow, but they're like little bitty miniature catfish. And so when I first got there, the ladies were like, you gotta, don't just like stick your hand down in there because if they sting you, it's gonna hurt. And a couple ladies got stung and they were in some major pain. So those are interesting live bait to fish with. But
Yeah, I'll take I'll take the artificial of anything. My guy at Big Sexy Baits, he makes an artificial mealworm, well, waxworm.
mhm.
And I don't like putting anything alive on a hook, nothing. Like I'll do the artificial waxworm. Eric at Liquid Willow Cat, he does the artificial leech. I'll take the artificial leech, the artificial willow cat. That's me. I just don't like stabbing anything. I don't know. I'm just weird. I'm just weird
Well,
like
and so along those lines, I think one of the things you're getting to with live bait is that another big rule, if you go to a bait shop and you buy, I don't know, a dozen minnows or more, 2 dozen minnows, let's say, and you only use half of them that day, a lot of people have the tendency to think, well, these cute little minnows, I'm just gonna set them free, and that's actually against the law in a lot of places, to just release all your live minnows into that body of water. The responsible thing to do is actually to just throw them away, which is hard for someone, I'm sure, like you, who doesn't even wanna put a hook in them to do. Dana's the same way, but it's just to try to avoid that invasive species and some issues that can cause environmentally,
yeah.
that's the better thing to do.
I mean, I can imagine just throwing them in the trash. I mean, it's not like I'm gonna take them home and be like, "Oh gosh, I gotta have a fish tank now." I mean, I'm not like that, but
Just
yeah,
stick to live bait and you'll be fine.
yeah, you mean artificial?
I mean,
Stick
yeah,
to
artificial,
the
sorry.
yeah, that's more me. I just that's right up my alley.
Yep,
But
certain people are like that, so it's whatever your preference is for sure.
right, and I watch people at the ponds all the time, with the big night crawlers and red worms and stuff like that, catching nice fish. But I mean, I bass fish. It's just, to each their own. And I think that I know for me, like the guy that I was telling you about, he actually told me about a pay lake that's, I don't know, maybe a half hour from me, that there is a fish that's worth 2 grand swimming in it. That's a
How
catfish.
so?
It's 104-pound flathead.
Oh my
And
goodness.
she hasn't been caught in over a year. That's why the pot on her is so big. And so I'm kind of like in this same situation because I'm not a catfisherman. So I'm like, oh, what do I need? What do I got? I do I have to get 85-pound braid and like this big old, shark pole, and stuff like that. But one of the main things that people use, like they go up there with cut bait and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, I totally want to get in like this competition thing,
So
but
the
I
thing
won't.
about flatheads is they're very much a predatory fish, and so I got to go fish for them when I was up in
Angie, did we lose you? Did we lose Angie? Can anybody tell me? She's completely frozen on my end. Okay. Thank you, Richard. I appreciate it. I'm just going to wait for her to come. Oh, there she is. Thank you, Richard. I appreciate that. So
not
the last thing we heard was you were able to go fish for them in Wisconsin.
Yeah, so we had a guide we took out, and he went out and caught a bunch of live bluegill, which is legal to do up there. And with the flatheads being such a predator fish, which is cool as opposed to like your channel catfish. Um, Basically, I've got a video on my YouTube channel where he described what we were doing, but basically you go out at night, which is the best one of the best times to go out for them. And he showed us how to hook the bluegill a certain way in the whole setup. And you just cast out your line, let that bluegill swim around, and you just kind of sit and wait for that flathead to attack it. So, and you hear that reel start screaming, and start reeling. So it was a
I
lot of
mean,
fun, and we
how
were. Oh,
I
I
have
was just
that
gonna say we
competitive edge.
yeah, and we were downtown Lacrosse, so that was really cool. I've never really fished in a downtown setting before, which we kind of talked about that last week, the urban
Right.
fishing. And it was fun because, we had, I think maybe 3 lines out with bluegill on them, and we were just sitting there waiting for one of them to go off. And this high speed police chase was going on land that we were watching, where the cops were chasing this car, and person got out and they ran after him. They had the dogs, and you could hear them yelling at him, like, um, come out now or I will release this dog or whatever they were yelling. So we're just sitting there and just waiting for. It was kind of like watching live PD while we were fishing. It was fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never would have thought previously about getting into like a catfishing thing, but man, he made it sound really fun. Like
Is
everybody goes in and gets their ticket, and you have to like get there before all the spots are taken, and then everybody lines up, and they have a lot of different pots to enter, but everybody's really there after that 2 grand fish,
yeah.
And so I'm like, I can't help it. Like eventually I'm gonna have to do it, so I got to find some stuff. But but
Very cool.
anyway, so we'll we'll kind of leave it at that because it's a good place to wrap it up for tonight. The Some of the things that we um, didn't, we're going to go over more in depth with the places to fish with no boat, because I think I'm to the point now with the pond fishing where I've fished enough of them and like different types, and it, where I think I can break it down pretty good, I guess is to say, like where to go for if you're going after bass versus if you're going after panfish. And so I think I'm going to give that a shot because I think a lot of people are going to start will probably start there, and it can be a lot of fun. So we'll go over that, and we'll go over um, the more in depth about the live bait versus artificial bait, because there's quite a bit of information for that. And for anybody that is going to go ahead and jump into, looking at baits and stuff like that, there is just you name it, it's out there. But I did find a new website where the baits are at a huge discount. Remember when we had that whole Yum Dinger thing where we were like, oh, Deanna, what? We're
Mhm.
like, Yum Dingers? And um, I got them for $1.50 on this site. A whole
A whole
pack
pack?
for a whole pack.
Wow.
I got them for $1.50. So, but they have, I mean, they have everything. They have, they
Flappy
have
Daddies?
no. I doubt I doubt that. I would love that, but if I saw that on there, you wouldn't get a crack at them. I'd be like, however
Buy 'em
many you
all up.
got. But they do. They have lots of plastics, and they have top waters and crankbaits and all kinds of stuff. And they're always doing. I think they have a big Fourth of July sale. Um, but I haven't ordered anything, unfortunately. But so you guys can check
Good.
that out.
Yeah.
And next week on the 12th, I will be in Salt Lake City on vacation. So we will not be live next week. Um
I'll
and
be
we
I'll be
will
heading up to Lake Erie to smallmouth fish for
Oh,
Midwest
next week?
Outdoors. Yep.
I thought that was the week after. Oh, okay. So
And
so
then
yeah, so neither one of us okay.
but then the following week I'm gonna be at ICAST in Orlando, and I've got
Okay.
a dinner that night with the Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, good deal. Well,
Yeah.
I wish I was going to ICAST.
I wish you were too.
I know. Yeah. I just didn't know where I was going to be at this point in the summer. Um, but I did start physical therapy. Um, and we have I think a pretty solid game plan, for the
Nice.
whole shoulder, neck thing.
Good.
So we'll see what happens, but I'm optimistic.
It's a good place to
But
be.
if I totally would have made plans for ICAST if if I had a better idea of
Have
what
you
was
ever
going
been?
on. Mm-mm.
Mm.
And I know a lot of people that are going to be there,
Mhm. I'm
so
sure you do.
yeah, so it sucks, but I'll be there in spirit, and I'll be watching social media feeds and living vicariously through all of my lovely friends. But so we won't be here then on the 12th. On the 19th, you won't be here.
Right.
I should be here on the 19th. Okay, I should. Hmm. So yeah, so we'll leave it at that. And when I come back, we'll be talking about live bait, artificial baits, going a little bit more in depth to that, and we'll take it from there. I hope everybody had a good, safe weekend. And everybody enjoy the week. Try and get out and fish. Have a good time. Take care of each other. And we'll see you in a couple weeks.
All
So,
right,
you have
everybody.
anything else, Angie?
Not just that tomorrow on the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast, I'm putting out the audio from our awesome conversation we had with Pam Martin Wells, just because it was such a great conversation. Even if you watch that episode, I feel like it's worth re-listening to and maybe even taking some notes because there was so much great information. So be on the lookout for that to release early in the morning tomorrow. And other than that, just I'm planning getting ready for ICAST, planning a bunch of interviews with a bunch of ladies I know that are going to be there. So that's going to be a busy week, but it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'll get a lot of great content for the Woman
Good.
Angler and Adventure podcast going forward. So,
Nice. Well, have fun. Be safe going down there. While you're flying. So,
but
still be safe
hopefully,
going down there.
yeah, hopefully
I'm
that goes well.
Yeah, I'm flying to Salt Lake, so it should be fine.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
should be.
Um you know what? My family out there, they don't do much fishing, but I might try and sneak in some bass fishing. Probably not a great idea, but maybe some trout fishing because we are
Mm,
having a huge like family get together up Big Cottonwood Canyon, like, and I'm talking like way top of the mountain where the streams are and stuff. So I might just have to try something fishing up there. Just
you're gonna be a fly fisherman when you come back.
oh gosh, I couldn't. There's no way. If I felt better, I totally could do it, but that would be way down the line, and then I might get addicted to it. It's probably that fun, but oh dear. Well, enjoy your time off, Angie,
All
and
right,
we'll both have a good vacation. You'll be busy, I'll be chilling, and we'll reconvene soon. So,
sounds
everybody
good.
have a good night, good week, and we will catch up on the next episode. Good night,
All right,
everybody. Mwah.
thanks for watching. See ya.